I found out my childhood best friend has been living a double life for 15 years, and when I confronted him, everything spiraled out of control. Now I'm the one being blamed. I never thought I'd be writing one of these posts, but I'm desperate for perspective from strangers because everyone in my life seems to have chosen sides already. This is going to be long, so buckle up. I, 34M, have known Ethan, 34M, since we were 5 years old. Kindergarten friends who grew up together in a small Midwestern town where everyone knows everyone's business. We were inseparable through elementary, middle school, high school. We went to different colleges but stayed close. When I started my graphic design business 7 years ago, Ethan was my first investor, putting in $25,000 when I was desperate for startup capital. He's been my rock through breakups, my parents' divorce, everything. Ethan is successful, ridiculously successful. He runs a tech consulting business that took off 5 years ago. He bought a beautiful house in our hometown, drives a Tesla, donates generously to local charities. Everyone respects him. He's on the town council, volunteers at the community center teaching coding to kids, the whole package. The golden boy of our town. 3 weeks ago, I was in Chicago for a design conference. I finished early on Friday and decided to grab dinner at this upscale restaurant before heading home the next day. I was scrolling through my phone when I heard a familiar laugh, Ethan's laugh. Which was strange because he'd told our friend group he was in Seattle all week for business. I looked up, and there he was, dressed in an expensive suit I'd never seen before, sitting at a table with a woman and 2 children, a boy around 8 and a girl maybe 5 or 6. They looked like a family. Ethan was holding the woman's hand across the table. She was wearing a wedding ring. So was he. My first thought was that he had a secret family. But then I remembered Ethan has never been married. He dates occasionally but always says he's too focused on his business for anything serious. At least, that's what he's told everyone back home for years. I watched, frozen, as he leaned over and kissed the woman. It wasn't a friendly kiss. It was intimate. Comfortable. The kiss of a long-term couple. The kids called him Dad. I heard it clearly. I don't know how long I sat there staring, but eventually, I snapped a quick photo with my phone and then slipped out before he could see me. My mind was racing. Ethan, my best friend of nearly 30 years, apparently had a whole second life I knew nothing about. I drove home in a daze, the 3-hour drive from Chicago to our town giving me plenty of time to spiral. Questions kept circling. How long had this been going on? Did anyone else know? Was his entire life in our hometown a lie? Was our friendship even real? When I got home, I called our mutual friend, Jess. She's known us both since middle school and is the most level-headed person I know. I told her what I'd seen and showed her the photo. She was as shocked as I was but cautioned me not to jump to conclusions. Maybe there's a reasonable explanation, she said. You need to talk to him directly. I agreed, but something kept me from confronting him immediately. I needed more information. So I did something I'm not proud of, I started digging. I searched his name online but with Chicago as the location instead of our hometown. And that's when everything unraveled. I found his LinkedIn profile, a different one than the one I knew, listing him as a partner at a Chicago law firm. Not a tech consultant. A lawyer. There were photos of him with his law partners. Articles he'd written for legal journals. A completely different career than the one I thought he had. Then I found them on Facebook. Ethan. His wife, Claire. Their kids, Noah and Lily. Photos of family vacations, school events, anniversaries. According to their posts, they'd been married for 10 years. 10 years. The profile said he lived in a suburb of Chicago. There was even a wedding announcement in the Chicago Tribune archives. My best friend, the person I trusted most in the world, had been living a complete double life. He had 2 separate careers, 2 separate homes, and a family that none of us knew about. And he'd been maintaining this deception for at least a decade. I was devastated. Angry. Confused. But most of all, I felt betrayed. All those times he'd claimed to be traveling for business? He was with his family. All those conversations about relationships and why he wasn't ready? Lies. After 3 days of barely sleeping, I decided I needed to confront him. Ethan was supposedly back from his Seattle trip, so I texted him asking to meet for drinks at our usual spot, a quiet bar on the edge of town. He agreed readily, which somehow made me even angrier, the casual normalcy of it when nothing was normal anymore. That night at the bar, I got there early and ordered a whiskey to steady my nerves. When Ethan walked in, all smiles and normal as ever, something in me snapped. I'd prepared a calm, rational approach, but seeing him act like everything was fine when he'd been lying to my face for years, I couldn't do it. How's Claire? I asked as soon as he sat down. The change in his expression was immediate. His smile vanished, replaced by a look of pure shock, then fear. "What did you just say?" His voice was barely above a whisper. I slid my phone across the table, showing him the photo I'd taken at the restaurant. "And Noah and Lily too. They seem like great kids." The color drained from his face. "How did you?" "I was in Chicago last weekend. Saw you with your family at Rossetti's. Funny, I thought you were in Seattle. At least that's what you told everyone here." He closed his eyes for a moment. When he opened them, he looked different somehow. Resigned. "Ryan, I can explain." "Explain what?" "That you've been living a double life? That you've been lying to me, to everyone, for years?" I was trying to keep my voice down, but people at nearby tables were starting to glance our way. "It's complicated." "No shit, it's complicated. You have a whole secret family, Ethan. A different career. What the hell is going on? Is anything you've told me about your life actually true?" He ran his hands through his hair, a nervous gesture I'd seen 1,000 times. "Can we go somewhere more private to talk about this?" We ended up in his car in the parking lot. For the next hour, Ethan told me everything. How he'd met Claire during his first year of law school in Chicago. How they'd fallen in love, gotten married. How he'd started commuting back to our hometown on weekends to help care for his mother after her cancer diagnosis. How after she passed, he'd kept coming back because he'd started the tech business as a side project and it was taking off. It wasn't supposed to be permanent, he explained. I was going to phase out the second life, move Claire and the kids here. But then the law firm offered me partnership, and the tech company was doing well, and I couldn't choose. I didn't want to choose. "So you decided to just live two separate lives? For 10 years? Do you realize how insane that sounds? I know it's crazy. But it worked. I love both my lives, Ryan. I love being a lawyer in Chicago. I love Claire and the kids more than anything. But I also love this town. I love the work I do here. I love," he hesitated, "the freedom. The freedom to lie to everyone who cares about you?" His expression hardened. "You don't understand the pressure I was under. My father always expected me to come back and make a difference in this town. When he died, that expectation fell on me even harder. And Claire, her family never thought I was good enough. They wanted her to marry some blue-blood Chicago lawyer from their social circle. I had to prove myself there too. So instead of disappointing anyone, you just created two separate lives? What about the people in those lives, Ethan? What about your wife? Your kids? What about me?" "Claire knows," he said quietly. That knocked the wind out of me. "What?" "She's known for about 5 years now. We hit a rough patch. She hired a private investigator thinking I was having an affair. Instead, she discovered this. We almost divorced, but ultimately decided to stay together. She doesn't love the arrangement, but she understands why I need both worlds." I was speechless. His wife knew and accepted this bizarre double life, but his supposed best friend was kept in the dark? "Who else knows?" I finally asked. "Just Claire and now you. No one else. So what's the end game here? You just keep living like this forever?" He sighed. "I've been working toward consolidating everything. The plan is to move Claire and the kids here next year. I've been preparing everyone in Chicago, scaling back my hours at the firm. But it has to be done carefully. And everyone here? When were you planning to tell us you have a secret family?" I was going to introduce Claire as someone I'd been seeing long distance. Ease everyone into it. "More lies," I said flatly. "Necessary ones," he countered. "Ryan, please. I need you to understand. And I need you not to tell anyone. Not yet. Let me handle this my way." That's when I made what might have been a catastrophic mistake. I told him I needed time to process everything before I could promise anything. He took that as a threat. "What exactly are you saying? That you might tell everyone if I don't do it your way? That's not fair, Ryan. This is my life. It's not just your life. It affects everyone who cares about you. Everyone who thinks they know you." His expression changed again, his lawyer face, I realize now. "Calculating, assessing risks. I helped you start your business. I've been there for you through everything. I'm asking for one thing, time and discretion. Can you give me that? As my friend?" I told him I'd think about it, but I was angry and hurt and feeling manipulated by his bringing up the business loan. We parted on tense terms. That night, I couldn't sleep. I felt like I was mourning, not just the truth about Ethan's life, but our friendship as I'd understood it. By morning, I'd decided that while I wouldn't actively expose him, I couldn't keep pretending everything was normal either. I texted him that I needed space and wouldn't be covering for his lies. 3 days later, everything imploded. I was at home working when Jess called, frantic. "What the hell did you say to Ethan?" she demanded. "What are you talking about?" "He just announced on Facebook that he's engaged to someone named Claire from Chicago. Says they've been in a long-distance relationship for years and she's moving here with her 2 kids. Everyone's shocked. He's telling people that you knew all along and have been helping him plan the proposal. People are hurt that you both kept this secret." My blood ran cold. The manipulative bastard had found a way to control the narrative by making me complicit in his lies. And worse, he'd thrown me under the bus by claiming I'd known all along, effectively making me the secret keeper everyone would resent once the truth came out. I tried calling him, but he didn't answer. I drove to his house, but he wasn't there. Finally, I sent a text, "We need to talk. Now. This isn't right, and you know it." His response came an hour later, "I'm telling my truth in my own way. You pushed me into this timeline. If you contradict me now, no one will believe you anyway. They'll just think you're jealous or trying to hurt me. Think carefully about what you say next, Ryan." I felt like I'd been punched in the stomach. That text was as close to a threat as it could get without explicitly saying it. The Ethan I thought I knew would never manipulate situations like this. But then again, the Ethan I thought I knew didn't exist. I called Jess immediately and asked her to come over. When she arrived, I told her everything, showing her the evidence I'd gathered and explaining my confrontation with Ethan. She sat in stunned silence as I laid it all out. "So he's been living 2 completely separate lives for a decade," she finally said. "And his wife knows?" "Apparently. Though I have no idea if that's true or just another lie. And now he's suddenly announcing this engagement as if it's new, making you complicit in his deception?" Her eyes narrowed. "That's seriously messed up. What do I do, Jess? If I expose him, he'll deny it and paint me as the jealous friend trying to ruin his happiness. If I stay quiet, I'm effectively endorsing his lies." She thought for a moment. "You need leverage. Something concrete that proves you're telling the truth." That night, I did something I'm not proud of. I created a fake social media account and reached out to Claire with a vague message suggesting I knew about her husband's double life and needed to talk. It was a long shot, but to my surprise, she responded almost immediately. We ended up having a video call the next day while Ethan was supposedly at work. Claire was beautiful, composed, and utterly exhausted looking. The kind of exhaustion that comes from years of emotional strain. "So you're Ryan," she said. "Ethan's mentioned you. His childhood best friend. And you're Claire. His wife of 10 years that he never mentioned." She smiled sadly. "I assume he told you I know about his arrangement? That I'm okay with it?" "He did." "Well, that was a lie. I found out 5 years ago, yes. We nearly divorced. But he convinced me to stay by promising he would end his other life within a year. Every year since, it's been just a little longer. The kids are settled in school. The firm needs him for this big case. His business in your town is at a critical growth stage. Always some reason to maintain the status quo." I felt sick. "So you're not moving to our town next year?" "That's news to me," she laughed bitterly. "Though he did recently suggest the kids and I visit there this summer. I'm guessing that's part of whatever story he's spinning now." We talked for nearly 2 hours. Claire shared details about their life together, showed me photos, even brought the kids in briefly to say hello before sending them to play. It was surreal, getting to know this family that should have been part of my life as Ethan's best friend, but had been kept hidden for a decade. "Why are you telling me all this?" I finally asked. "Because I'm done," Claire said simply. "I've given him chance after chance to merge his 2 lives honestly. If he's now creating some fiction about us being newly engaged, that tells me he never intended to come clean. And I can't live like this anymore." She told me she'd been gathering evidence for months, credit card statements showing his double life, recorded conversations where he admitted to the deception, emails. She'd been building a case for divorce and custody. "I'm filing next week," she said. "I wanted the kids to finish the school year first." I felt a surge of sympathy for her. "I'm sorry. You don't deserve any of this." "Neither do you," she replied. "Or anyone else he's deceived. Ethan isn't a bad person at heart, Ryan. He's just broken somehow. Unable to disappoint anyone, so he tries to be everything to everyone, even when it's impossible. Even when it means living a lie." After our call, I felt more conflicted than ever. Claire was filing for divorce regardless of what I did. Ethan's carefully constructed worlds were about to collide catastrophically. Part of me, a small, vengeful part, wanted to help accelerate the collision by exposing him publicly. But another part remembered 3 decades of friendship, all the times he'd been there for me, the good he'd genuinely done in our community. I decided to give him one last chance to come clean on his own terms. I texted him, "I spoke with Claire. I know everything now. You have 48 hours to tell the truth, or I will." His response was immediate, "You had no right to contact my family. Come to my house. Now." When I arrived, Ethan looked like he hadn't slept in days. His usually immaculate home was a mess, clothes strewn about, empty takeout containers on the counter. "You've ruined everything," he said as soon as I walked in. No hello, no preamble. "I ruined nothing," I countered. "You did this to yourself. Claire is filing for divorce." "I know. She told me." He paced the living room like a caged animal. "Do you have any idea what you've done?" "I was handling it. I had a plan." "Your plan was more lies. You told everyone here I knew about Claire all along. You made me complicit in your deception without my consent." I panicked, he shouted. "You were going to tell everyone anyway." "I never said that. I just wouldn't promise to keep lying for you indefinitely." He collapsed onto the couch, head in his hands. "My kids. They're going to hate me when they find out." Despite everything, I felt a pang of sympathy. "They don't have to. You can still do the right thing, Ethan. Tell the truth, all of it. People will be hurt and angry, but at least it will be honest. Clean slate." He looked up at me, and I saw something dangerous in his eyes. Desperation. "I can't lose everything, Ryan. I won't." "What does that mean?" "It means I'll do whatever it takes to protect my family, my reputation, my life here. Even if that means sacrificing our friendship." "Is that a threat?" I asked incredulously. "It's a reality. If you push this, if you try to expose me before I'm ready, I'll make sure you regret it." I stared at him, trying to reconcile this person with the friend I'd known my entire life. "Who are you?" "I'm someone fighting for his life," he said quietly. "And I fight to win." I left his house shaken. That night, I received an email from him with the subject line, "Read before you do anything." Inside was a document detailing the loan he'd given my business 7 years ago, with terms and conditions I'd never seen before, giving him significant ownership stake if certain obscure clauses were triggered. One of those clauses related to actions detrimental to the investor's reputation or livelihood. The message was clear: if I exposed him, he would attempt to take my business. I forwarded the document to my lawyer immediately, who confirmed what I suspected: these terms were not in the original agreement I'd signed. Ethan had fabricated them. But fighting this in court would be expensive and time-consuming, potentially ruining my business even if I eventually won. The next morning, things escalated even further. I woke up to dozens of notifications. Ethan had posted a long, emotional update on social media. "With heavy heart, I need to share something painful. My engagement announcement has been marred by unexpected betrayal. Someone I considered a dear friend has become obsessed with destroying my happiness out of jealousy. He's now contacting my fiancée, spreading vicious lies, and threatening to create elaborate stories about me if I don't break off my relationship. I never thought I'd experience this kind of toxic possessiveness from someone I trusted. I'm asking for privacy and support during this difficult time." The post had hundreds of comments, most expressing shock and offering support to Ethan. Several people I considered friends were explicitly calling me out by name, although Ethan had carefully avoided naming me directly. My phone was blowing up with texts from mutual acquaintances asking what the hell was going on. Ethan had fired the first public shot, and he'd done it masterfully, painting himself as the victim before I could say anything. The moral dilemma was now unavoidable. I had to either publicly expose him with evidence and potentially lose my business in the ensuing legal battle, or remain silent and be branded as the villain in his carefully crafted narrative. I felt like I was drowning. My phone wouldn't stop ringing with calls from mutual friends demanding explanations. Local businesses I had contracts with were emailing to discuss our relationship after hearing concerning rumors. Ethan had effectively turned our entire community against me without explicitly saying a word about me. It was the perfect character assassination, vague enough to avoid defamation but specific enough that everyone knew exactly who he meant. I called Jess in a panic. "He's destroying my reputation and threatening my business. What do I do?" "Fight back," she said firmly. "With the truth. You have evidence he doesn't think you'll use. If I use it, he'll try to take my business with that fake loan document." "Which won't hold up in court," she countered. "Your lawyer confirmed that. But the legal battle could bankrupt me before we ever get a verdict." She was silent for a moment. "What if there was another way? Something that doesn't involve directly exposing him yourself?" That's when she suggested the plan that would change everything. Jess had a cousin who worked as a reporter for our regional newspaper. If we shared the story and evidence anonymously with her, she could investigate independently and potentially publish the story. Ethan couldn't sue me for violating a confidentiality clause if I wasn't the one who publicly exposed him. It felt manipulative and underhanded, exactly the kind of thing Ethan himself would do. But I was desperate. I agreed to meet with Jess's cousin, Mara. Mara was sharp, skeptical, and thorough. She made it clear she wasn't interested in personal vendettas or small-town drama, she needed verifiable facts. I showed her everything: the photos, the social media profiles, the LinkedIn discrepancies, the text messages. I gave her Claire's contact information, with Claire's permission, which she had readily granted during a follow-up call. "If this checks out, it's definitely a story," Mara said. The beloved local businessman and town council member living a complete double life for a decade? People will eat it up. But I need to verify independently. And if I publish, I'll be approaching him for comment. "He'll know it came from me," I said. "Probably. But he won't be able to prove it, and that's what matters legally." For the next week, I lived in a state of perpetual anxiety. Ethan's campaign against me continued with subtle digs and veiled references to betrayal in his social media posts. Several clients had already pulled their contracts with my design firm. I was hemorrhaging money and goodwill daily. Then came the most unexpected twist in the entire saga. I received a text from a number I didn't recognize. "This is Noah. Ethan's son. I need to talk to you." Noah, the 8-year-old boy I'd seen in the restaurant, had somehow gotten my number. I was hesitant to respond, but curiosity won out. I called the number. "How did you get my number, Noah?" I asked when he answered. "From Mom's phone. She talks about you a lot now. Are you really Dad's best friend?" My heart broke a little. I was, yes. For a very long time. He has pictures of you guys. In his office at home. But he never brought you to our house. His voice was matter of fact, with the directness only children can manage. I heard Mom talking on the phone. She said Dad has a whole different life and different friends. Is that true? I was walking an ethical tightrope. This was a child, Ethan's child, and I had no right to traumatize him with adult problems. But I also wouldn't lie to him. "Your dad and I grew up together," I said carefully. "But there are some complicated grown-up things happening right now. Have you talked to your mom or dad about this? Mom cries a lot. Dad isn't staying at our house anymore. He comes to take us to dinner, but he and Mom don't talk." There was a pause. "Are you the reason they're getting divorced?" "No, Noah. I'm not the reason. But this isn't something you should be worrying about, okay? Your parents both love you very much. Dad says we might move to his other town. Is it nice there?" I swallowed hard. "It's a good place to grow up. I liked it a lot when I was your age." We talked for a few more minutes, mostly about his school and baseball team, before I gently suggested he should probably return his mom's phone. He agreed but asked if he could call me again sometime. I told him that needed to be up to his parents. After hanging up, I immediately texted Claire to let her know about the call. She was horrified that Noah had accessed her phone and called me, but grateful I'd handled it delicately. She also shared some news. Ethan had moved out 3 days ago and was staying in a hotel. He'd finally admitted to her that he'd been living a double life for reasons beyond what he'd initially claimed. "He told me there's more to the story," she wrote. "Something about his father that he's never told anyone. He's starting therapy next week." This revelation left me unsettled. What else didn't I know about my supposed best friend? 2 days later, Mara called. "The story's running tomorrow," she said. "I've verified everything independently. I even found property records, tax documents filed in both places. This guy's been living 2 complete lives for years. It's incredible he kept it up this long." "Did you talk to him?" I asked. "I did. You won't believe what happened." According to Mara, when confronted with the evidence, Ethan had broken down completely. Instead of denying everything or threatening legal action, he'd given her a full confession. And he'd revealed something neither Claire nor I knew: the real reason behind his elaborate double life. His father faked his death when Ethan was in college, Mara explained. He didn't actually die of heart failure like everyone thought. He embezzled money from his company and fled to Argentina with his secretary. Left Ethan's mother with nothing but debt and shame. I was stunned. Ethan's father had been a pillar of our community, much like Ethan himself had become. His death when we were in college had devastated Ethan. Ethan found out the truth during his first year of law school, Mara continued. His father contacted him for money. Threatened to return and reveal everything if Ethan didn't help him. Ethan's mother had rebuilt her life and reputation by then, and he couldn't bear for her to face that public humiliation. So he started living a double life too. What? Generate enough income to pay off his blackmailing father? Essentially, yes. He was sending money to Argentina for years. When his mother actually did get cancer, he was already entrenched in both lives. After she died, his father's demands increased. He kept threatening to come back and reveal everything, not just the embezzlement but also that Ethan had been helping him hide all these years. I felt sick. All this time, I'd thought Ethan's elaborate deception was simply about wanting two different lives. But it had started as a desperate attempt to protect his mother and evolved into a prison of his own making. His father died 6 months ago, Mara added. Heart attack for real this time. That's why Ethan finally started making plans to merge his two lives. He was finally free of the blackmail. Is all this going in your article? I asked. Yes. Ethan authorized it. He said he's tired of living with secrets. The next morning, the story broke. Local businessman's double life exposed, a decade of deception rooted in family blackmail. The article detailed everything, both of Ethan's careers, his secret family, the years of lies, and the shocking revelation about his father's fake death and subsequent blackmail. By noon, it was the only thing anyone in town was talking about. My phone exploded with messages, apologies from people who'd believed Ethan's implications about me, questions about how much I'd known, expressions of shock and sympathy. Ethan had disappeared. His house in our town was empty. His social media accounts had been deactivated. Both his businesses released terse statements about his leave of absence for personal reasons. That evening, I received an email from him, the first direct communication since our confrontation at his house. Ryan, by now you've read the article. Everything in it is true. I want you to know that I never told Mara you were her source, though we both know you were. You had every right to expose me after what I did to you. I'm truly sorry for everything, the lies, the manipulation, the threats. Most of all, I'm sorry I betrayed our friendship. The email continued, explaining in painful detail how he'd become trapped in his own web of deception. How each lie required two more to maintain it. How he'd developed different mannerisms, different speech patterns, even slightly different personalities for his two lives. How exhausting it had been. How he'd considered ending it all more than once. I'm getting help now, he wrote. Real help. Claire and I are divorcing, but she's agreed to family therapy for the kids' sake. I've taken a leave from both jobs. I don't know what my life looks like going forward, but I know it has to be built on truth from now on. The final paragraph hit me hardest. You asked me once who I am. The truth is, I don't know anymore. I've been playing roles for so long that I've lost myself. But I do know that the friendship we had was real, even if much of what surrounded it wasn't. If there's any chance you could forgive me someday, not now, but someday, I would be grateful for the opportunity to earn back your trust. Either way, I've instructed my attorney to send you documents voiding any claim I ever had on your business. It was always a bluff. I would never have actually gone through with it. I stared at my screen for a long time after reading his email, flooded with conflicting emotions. Anger at his manipulation. Sympathy for the impossible situation with his father. Sadness for the friendship we'd lost. Relief that the truth was finally out. I didn't respond that night. I needed time to process everything. But as I tried to sleep, I kept thinking about something Claire had said during our conversation. Ethan isn't a bad person at heart. He's just broken somehow. Update, 3 weeks later. It's been 3 weeks since Mara's article was published, and I'm still processing everything that's happened. The story went viral beyond our local paper, it was picked up by national news outlets and even inspired a podcast episode about double lives. People from both Ethan's worlds have been reeling from the revelations. After much consideration, I finally responded to Ethan's email a week after receiving it. I told him I wasn't ready to forgive him yet, but I was willing to hear him out when he was ready to talk. We met at a neutral location, a coffee shop in a town halfway between our hometown and Chicago. The man who sat across from me looked both familiar and like a stranger. Ethan appeared to have aged years and weeks. The confident, put-together person I'd known was gone, replaced by someone with dark circles under his eyes and a perpetual slump to his shoulders. But there was also something new there, a rawness, an authenticity I'd never seen before. "Thank you for coming," he said. "I honestly didn't think you would." "I almost didn't," I admitted. "Part of me still hates you for what you did." He nodded. "That's fair. I hate myself for a lot of it too." We talked for nearly 4 hours. With no more secrets between us, Ethan shared everything, things he'd never told anyone, not even Claire or his therapist yet. How his father had been emotionally abusive throughout his childhood, demanding perfection and never showing approval. How discovering his father's embezzlement and fake death had simultaneously destroyed and liberated him. How paying the blackmail had initially felt like justice, his father finally suffering by living in exile, until it became another form of control. "I got caught in this impossible situation," he explained. Sending him money meant working 2 jobs, which meant 2 locations, which eventually evolved into 2 lives. And then I met Claire, and I fell in love, and suddenly I had even more to lose if the truth came out. But why not just tell her from the beginning? Or tell me? Fear, he said simply. Fear of judgment. Fear of losing everything. And the longer it went on, the more impossible telling the truth seemed. When I asked about the fake loan document he'd threatened me with, he looked genuinely ashamed. I was desperate, he said. Cornered. I knew it would never hold up legally, but I thought it might scare you enough to buy me time. It was unforgivable. He told me he'd started intensive therapy and was staying with his cousin in another state, neutral territory away from both his lives while he figured out next steps. Claire had been surprisingly supportive despite proceeding with the divorce. They were focusing on co-parenting and helping the kids understand what had happened in age-appropriate ways. Noah asks about you, he mentioned. He says you were nice to him on the phone. I felt a pang at that. He seems like a good kid. The best, Ethan agreed, his eyes softening. Both of them are. They're the one truly good thing to come out of all this mess. Before we parted, he handed me an envelope. Inside was a check for double the amount he'd originally invested in my business, along with legal documents relinquishing any claim to ownership. I can't take this, I said, trying to hand it back. Please. My actions cost you clients. And it's not just about money, it's about making amends in whatever way I can. I reluctantly kept the check but told him I'd think about whether to cash it. As awkward as our meeting was, it provided some closure. I still don't know if Ethan and I can ever rebuild our friendship, but I at least understand him better now. Update, 2 months later. The dust has finally started to settle. My business is slowly recovering. Ironically, the publicity from being connected to the Double Life story has brought in some new clients who found my portfolio through news articles. Jess has been instrumental in helping me rebuild, referring clients and defending me to anyone who still believed Ethan's initial implications about me. Ethan resigned from the town council and has sold his house in our hometown. He's taken an extended leave from the law firm but apparently hasn't officially resigned yet. According to Jess, who's remained in limited contact with him, he's looking for a place in a suburb halfway between Chicago and our town, a symbolic middle ground as he tries to integrate his formerly separate lives. Claire called me out of the blue last week. We had an honest conversation about everything that happened. She's angry and hurt, but also feeling validated after years of suspecting something wasn't right. She thanked me for bringing the truth to light, saying that despite the pain, knowing is better than the constant gaslighting and doubt she'd experienced. The kids are adjusting better than expected, she told me. Noah especially. He told his therapist he's glad his dad doesn't have to pretend anymore because pretending makes people sad. Kids have wisdom adults often lack. The most surprising development came yesterday. I received an email from Ethan with an unusual request. He's writing a memoir about his experiences, not for publication, but as part of his therapy. He asked if I would be willing to contribute my perspective on certain events we shared. I need to understand how my actions affected others, he wrote. Especially those I cared about most. I haven't decided if I'll do it yet. Part of me wants complete distance from his story. Another part recognizes that his journey toward honesty is probably something I should